The Dallas Cowboys are coming up on their first year under new head coach Brian Schottenheimer, and it's safe to say that the pressure is already on Schottenheimer. For a franchise that's as legendary as the Cowboys, there isn't much patience when it comes to waiting for a comeback year, so this really has to be it. Schottenheimer has been putting his own stamp on the team during the offseason and making some adjustments to the Cowboys roster. They still have franchise quarterback Dak Prescott, who will be back from a season-ending injury last season, and star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. So, some of the big name are back and ready to rock. But there's still nervousness in the Cowboys camp as the 2025-26 season approaches. Will they finally have more than a mediocre season? Before the season kicks in makes for a good time to reflect on what's been happening during the offseason and look at the state of the Cowboys. So, does the team have the kind of winning roster it needs to make some noise this season? Cowboys have some major playmakers. Prescott's job will be a lot easier if he has good playmakers around him. In a Tuesday, July 8th feature for ESPN, NFL expert Bill Barnwell names the best playmakers in the NFL, and he gives his thoughts on the Cowboys. Let's get to Dallas. Barnwell has the Cowboys ranked number 11 on the tally. That's not bad at all. It's actually up from number 18 last season, so quite an improvement. Last season was a step backward for CeeDee Lamb, but it seems reasonable to chalk up some of his decline to Dak Prescott's injuries, Barnwell notes. He also makes the observation that Lamb will finally get some help on the outside, where George Pickens should, on what can only be described as the most paperish substance imaginable, be an upgrade on the likes of Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks. It's not all fun and games, though, as Barnwell notes that he's still not entirely sure why Dallas downgraded from Rico Dowdle to Javonte Williams by choice, but this is arguably the league's worst backfield on paper. While these rankings index more heavily on wide receiver, the Cowboys seem entirely disinterested in even taking fun flyers at running back. So, it's a mixed bag, but in general, the Cowboys are looking significantly stronger in this area going into the new season. Looking at the Cowboys secondary. The Cowboys secondary is a different story. In a story published on Tuesday, July 8th, for PFF, John Kosko lays out the best secondaries in the NFL. He has the Cowboys at number 31, so really not great. Here, Kosko makes the case that injuries, coaching changes, and key departures have depleted the unit's depth. He later adds, while there is still talent in this group, the prime years of these players may already be behind them unless an infusion of youth provides a spark. Of course, it's just his prediction, and hopefully the Dallas Cowboys will surprise everybody in a good way when the new season starts. The Dallas Cowboys finally took steps to address the fact that CeeDee Lamb was the only perimeter weapon teams were scared about, which prompted them to swing for the fences and trade for former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver George Pickens. The Pickens trade, when paired with the expected development of Jalen Tolbert, gives the Cowboys some much-needed firepower on the outside. However, as with any new trade addition, the Pickens move has likely spelled doom for a player on the back of the roster. In this case, it's Jalen Moreno-Cropper. The Cowboys have not only promoted top returner Cavani Turpin to a role that will see him catch more passes in 2025, but they also traded for Jonathan Mingo and signed Paris Campbell to compete with Jalen Brooks and Ryan Flournoy. JMC needs a miracle to stick on this Cowboys team deep into the 2025 season. Jalen Moreno-Cropper could be cut by the Dallas Cowboys. Moreno-Cropper came to the Cowboys as an undrafted free agent out of Fresno State. With the Bulldogs, he recorded at least 83 catches in each of his last 2 seasons while amassing totals of just under 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns in that time frame. His size is what helped him go undrafted. Standing just 5'11" and 173 pounds, Moreno-Cropper has latched onto the back end of the Dallas roster over the last few years. With the return spot locked up by Turpin, Moreno-Cropper has found it very difficult to latch on in any sort of expanded receiving role. With Turpin taking a more expansive role as a receiver, Moreno-Cropper will find playing time even more difficult to come by. His best hope at this point is to hope that either Campbell or Flournoy is cut loose and Dallas chooses to keep 7 wide receivers on the 53-man roster. Moreno-Cropper is still just 24 years old, so his best years in football may still be in the windshield. Unfortunately for him, He may need some incredibly lucky breaks to go his way if he is going to last with Dallas after they added so many proven names ahead of him. What if the Cowboys signed wide receiver Henry Ruggs? The Dallas Cowboys are no strangers to bold, headline-grabbing moves. But one of the most polarizing hypotheticals fans are debating online involves that question. Once an emerging deep threat in the NFL, Ruggs' career was derailed by a tragic DUI crash in 2021 that resulted in a felony conviction and prison sentence. While he's currently incarcerated, there's constant chatter about whether a second chance could ever happen, and if so, what a team like Dallas would do. Let's break down how signing Ruggs would impact the Cowboys on the field, in the locker room, and in the court of public opinion. A deep threat duo, Ruggs and Turpin's speed combo. Henry Ruggs came into the league with world-class speed, running a blistering 4.27 in the 40-yard dash. His explosive ability allowed him to stretch defenses vertically and open up space for other playmakers. In just 20 NFL games with the Raiders, he averaged an eye-popping 18.4 yards per reception. Now imagine pairing Ruggs with the Cowboys' return specialist and gadget receiver Cavani Turpin, one of the fastest players in the league today. Turpin has shown flashes of what elite speed can do when used creatively, and Ruggs could be a more polished version of that same threat in a true vertical WR role. Defenses would be forced to account for two burners on the field at once, which would free up space for CeeDee Lamb underneath and George Pickens on contested sideline catches. It's not often a team has two players capable of taking the top off a defense on the same roster. Ruggs would bring that type of dynamic explosiveness that perfectly complements what Turpin already offers in spurts. Offensive fit. Henry Ruggs opens more space for stars. If reinstated, Henry Ruggs would likely compete for the WR3 or WR4 role, with CeeDee Lamb locked in as WR1 and George Pickens lined up opposite him. Jalen Tolbert could also be in the mix for reps. Adding Ruggs to that group would give offensive coordinator Clayton Adams more tools than ever. Picture a four-wide set, Lamb in the slot, Pickens outside, Ruggs on a go route, and Turpin in motion. Defensive coordinators would be forced into deep zone looks, opening up the run game and intermediate passing lanes. Timeline. Could Henry Ruggs join if Pickens is re-signed? Henry Ruggs is currently serving a 3 to 10-year prison sentence for his 2021 DUI conviction. However, he will be eligible for parole as early as 2026. That timing becomes important for the Cowboys because George Pickens will be due for a contract extension in the 2026 offseason. If Pickens is re-signed to a long-term deal, the Cowboys would already have two major investments at wide receiver, Pickens and Lamb. Ruggs, if signed, would likely be a bargain bin, low-risk option on a league minimum deal. If Pickens leaves in free agency, the Cowboys may be more willing to take a chance on a speedster like Ruggs to fill the void opposite Lamb. In either scenario, Ruggs' potential return could be part of a larger 2026 roster restructuring. Whether it's as depth or an outside replacement, his skill set fits, but only if the Cowboys believe the gamble is worth the noise. The PR firestorm. Would Ruggs be worth the backlash? Jerry Jones has a history of gambling on controversial players, Greg Hardy, Pac-Man Jones, and others, but signing Henry Ruggs would be in a different league. Even if released and reinstated, the Cowboys would face immediate backlash from the media, fans, and sponsors. The team would need to weigh any potential on-field value against public trust and brand image. NFL reinstatement isn't guaranteed. After early parole in 2026, Ruggs would still need to apply for reinstatement with the NFL. That process includes behavioral evaluations, counseling history, and league approval under the personal conduct policy. Given the circumstances, reinstatement is not guaranteed. Final verdict: high speed, high stakes. Henry Ruggs could still offer rare, game-breaking speed. If paired with Cavani Turpin and supported by CeeDee Lamb, the offense could be exciting to watch. If George Pickens is re-signed in 2026, Ruggs might be redundant. If Pickens leaves, Ruggs could be viewed as a potential low-cost gamble. Either way, the Cowboys would need to decide if the controversy and criticism are worth the upside.